What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the 715 Green and Gold Tailgate Podcast as part of the Man Cave Podcast. Dan Casper here with you. A big thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to follow and subscribe to both the 715 Green and Gold Tailgate Podcast and the Man Cave Podcast. All right, let's talk a little football here this morning. Warm up the brains here a little bit. But you can keep sending me your Brewers picks. We'll get to some of your picks a little bit later on. The brewer that you believe has the most to prove this year. Now, you could say, well, is it spring or regular season? Hey, if you got a different pick for each of them, that's perfectly fine. Okay, send both of them on over. Okay, but let me know your picks. So I wanted to talk a little Packers, just to break it up here a little bit. We've talked some hoops, we've talked some baseball and such. We'll get to some local sports roundup because a lot to catch up on as well. But Packers-wise, I was perusing my reading materials over the last couple days and such, and there was a couple of pieces on NFL.com I thought were kind of like, oh, okay. That might make for some good banter to get some of the reaction and some of the opinions of our 715 fan cave, 715 listeners or team sports talk listeners out there. And first up, now that the season's over with, you had a writer, a gentleman by the name of Gennaro Felice, I believe is how you pronounce his name. I apologize if I mispronounced it. But NFL rookie grades ranking each 2024 draft class from number 1 to number 32. Okay? So the number 1 team was Washington. I mean, Jayden Daniels at the top tells you a lot. But you look at games started. Jayden Daniels started 17. They had 3 second-round picks. You had guys that started 17, and 16 games, or played in 17, and 16 games. Third-round picks, both of them, 16 and 17 games. So, I mean, they were getting consistent contributions from their 3, 4, 5, 6 picks, all 6 picks within the first 3 rounds. They got an A. Rams got an A. That made sense because of, you look at their defense, Brandon Fisk and Jared Verse, of course. You got the Chargers that got an A-. Raiders got actually an A-. I mean, Brock Bowers was just absolutely fantastic this year. I mean, if somebody's tight end, I may be calling up the Raiders saying, hey, Michael Mayer over there, is he available? Brock Bowers is legit. You don't need to worry about that. You don't need to worry about Michael Mayer. Tampa Bay was the other team that got an A. They got an A-. 7 teams got A's. Giants actually got an A-. Malik Neighbors was a big one. Tyler Nubin over there, too. Safety. He was mentioned a lot as a potential Packer one last year. And then Philly. No argument there. Philly got an A-. Mitchell, Cooper Jean, Hunt on their outside linebacker. I mean, again, contribution from their first 3. The round out the top 10, San Francisco got a B+ at 8, Baltimore at 9, and then Green Bay got a B+, the 10th highest ranked rookie class. Agree or disagree? Well, let's kind of revisit it here. So Jordan Morgan, 6 games, 1 start. Edgerrin Cooper, 14 games, 4 starts. Probably should up those starts a little bit more. Javon Bullard, 15 games, 11 starts. Went back and forth between safety and nickel depending on injuries. Marshawn Lloyd, just 1 game. Tyron Hopper, 17 games, 0 starts, mostly at special teams. Evan Williams, 13 games, 6 starts. Jacob Monk, 10 games, 0 starts. Oladapo, 9 games, 0 starts. Travis Glover, 7 games, 0 starts. So here was the write-up that the first line just like draws the attention right away. The writer notes, I obnoxiously contend. Let me rephrase that. Resay that. I obnoxiously contend that the judgment of this particular class could effectively separate casuals from ball knowers. Yes, he's calling out some Packers fans and calling out some fans right now. He is absolutely calling some people out. Goes on to say, injuries ruined the 2024 season for the Packers' first-round pick and third-round pick, which could lead one to think Green Bay didn't get much from this draft crop. Expressing that notion would be a mistake. Linebacker, safety, and nickelback don't get the attention of many other positions. But there are three areas in which the Packers received significant rookie returns. Despite getting off to a slow start and eventually missing 3 games altogether due to some injuries of his own, Edgerrin Cooper stuffed the stat sheet as a rangy force against the run and pass, ultimately earning a spot on the Pro Football Writers of America All-Rookie team. Evan Williams also received that honor, proving his worth as a savvy playmaker on the back end. With the drafting of Williams and the signing of Xavier McKinney, the safety position went from a major weakness in 2023 to an unquestioned strength. Javon Bullard, who split his time between safety and nickelback, wasn't quite as exceptional as Cooper and Williams, but he did start 11 games and piled up 90 tackles. B+, by the way. Did I say B+? I'm not sure if I said B+. B+, grade for the Packers 2024 rookie class. Agree or disagree? Considering the teams that are ahead, and you look at some of the other teams behind and that, I mean, Denver's right behind them. Bo Nix was the big one. Ellis, their second-round pick. Troy Franklin, also receiver and such. So, I mean, I'll be honest, I can't argue with it too much. I know like 10 might just be like, there's no way they're top 10 when you don't get anything from your first-round pick, and that is my issue with Goody the last couple of years. I get it in a sense in certain years. Okay, you're maybe drafting for projection, higher ceiling type of player in that, but I think for at least this year, they need somebody who could contribute right away. So I get the argument of like, well, they didn't get anything from the first round pick. How could they be a top 10 rookie class? But I think when you look at the emergence of Edgerrin Cooper, I think we're all feeling pretty dang good about the outlook of Edgerrin Cooper. I saw Matt Miller, who is a draft analyst for ESPN now, and it was on X over the weekend, and he was asked let me bring it up here, but who are the best, who are your top 10 linebackers in the league right now? He went Fred Warner, Roquan Smith, top tier. Next tier was Logan Wilson, Zach Bond, Matt Milano. And then the next tier, Frankie Louvu, Levante David, Henley, Anzalone, and Edgerrin Cooper. Edgerrin Cooper he already had as the 10th best linebacker. All right. Evan Williams, I agree with what the writer says here, paired up now with Xavier McKinney. Last couple years, the safety position looked atrocious. There was like just filling in bodies over there to try to get this thing figured out. So they get the best free agent out there in Xavier McKinney. And then they hit it. I think everybody was like, oh, Javon Bullard, second round pick. There's your safety. Got some depth with Evan Williams. But Evan Williams, it was to the point where like, we got to have that guy out there. It's still head scratching. He didn't play any snaps in the first game of the season against the Eagles. I think we're all feeling pretty darn good for the next few years about the safety position. I'm still a little hesitant on Bullard with the nickel. Showed some good things, showed some poor things in that. I think though more of the poorer things came from when he was a safety. So maybe nickel's his best spot, but he's not quite, I would say, a top tier. Well, he's not I should say not quite. He isn't a top tier nickel corner yet. You just hope, okay, 1 year in the books, continues to get better. So I'm not quite like there to say that's locked down for the next few years. The nickel spot with Javon Bullard. I want to see a little bit more. Hopper to me is an interesting player. 3rd round pick. And I remember when he was first drafted, it sure felt like that's a special teams pick. And then you're thinking, ooh, 3rd round pick for special teams. Very raw type of player. Had a lot of speed. But when we talk about the linebackers, is he ready to maybe make a jump and join Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker next year? I don't know yet. Jacob Monk is, a lot of people assume that he's a replacement for Josh Myers at center. I don't know anymore. I don't know anymore. So, Marshawn Lloyd, injuries, that you just feel bad for the kid. I mean, whether it was appendicitis or other stuff, it just flared up at hamstrings. It just felt bad for the guy, and Morgan just could never get that shoulder right. So I understand some trepidation from some people, from some fans saying it's not top 10 when Morgan and Marshawn Lloyd played 7 games combined. But I think when you look at what Cooper did and the ceiling where he's at, Evan Williams, and even Javon Bullard, comparing it to the rest of the league, that's the other part of it. If you compare it to the rest of the league, yeah, I think you could make the case that it was top 10, right around 10. If anybody that's wondering who had the worst ranked rookie class for this one, it was the Cleveland Browns. D-. Minnesota had the second to worst one. Maybe that makes what Kevin O'Connell's job even more impressive. A lot, though, again, J.J. McCarthy. And then they didn't have a lot of picks, right? So I know I'm not trying to make excuses for Vikings, but J.J. McCarthy didn't play. Dallas Turner, 16 games, 0 starts. I don't think anybody's too down on him right now. But they didn't have another pick until the 4th round, then the 6th round, and then the 7th round. So they didn't have a ton of picks over there. Buffalo was 30 and Kansas City was 29. Detroit was 28. But again, Detroit, one of the better teams in the regular season. Kansas City won the Super Bowl. Buffalo, one of the better teams. Minnesota, one of the better teams. Kind of a weird dynamic, right? Philly was a top 10. They won the Super Bowl, but they also made some pretty darn good free agency moves and had some good veterans already on the team too. And then the other interesting piece I thought that was out there was the 8 biggest Super Bowl windows. Okay, this was from Bucky Brooks from NFL.com. The 8 biggest Super Bowl windows right now. The number 1 team, according to Bucky, Philadelphia Eagles. Number 2, Detroit Lions. Probably not a lot of surprises right now. Kansas City, number 3. Baltimore, number 4. And then your Green Bay Packers at number 5. To round out the 8, it was the Chargers at 6, Washington at 7, Houston at 8. Why the Packers at number 5? Well, Bucky says the youngest team in the league is well positioned to make an extended run as a title contender. The franchise's draft and developed strategy has resulted in a roster with blue-chip players in key positions. Moreover, the Packers hold their own in a fierce divisional arms race, with general managers and executives looking at the NFC North as the premier division in the league. With Jordan Love on the verge of joining the league's elite, the Packers have a franchise quarterback with the talent and potential to transform the offense into a juggernaut. Flanked by an all-pro caliber running back in Josh Jacobs, a fleet of dynamic pass catchers, and a stout offensive line, Love spearheads a unit that can compete with anybody in a shootout or a grinded-out affair. While a true wide receiver 1 would take the offense to another level, the playmaker by committee approach has worked pretty well for Matt LaFleur's squad. Defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley has put the puzzle pieces together on a unit that featured 7 former first-rounders. 7 former first-rounders in the rotation in 2024. Though Alexander apparently could be on his way out, and Stokes is an impending free agent, the Packers' developmental plan enables them to move on with young players promoted into prominent roles when veterans depart. As one of the league's banner teams when it comes to talent identification, acquisition, and development, Green Bay is built to compete at a championship level for the next few seasons. I don't think any Packers fan or too many Packers fans would say that or would disagree that the window is now and for the foreseeable future. I hope there isn't a majority of Packers fans. I'm sure there's going to be some. But I think you look at what we saw for the defense, it's trending upward. We're going to have our defense coordinator back. We see some of the younger talent on the team mixed in with some veteran. I think there's no question that Green Bay is one of the top teams in the entire National Football League that has one of the biggest Super Bowl windows. You've got a healthy cap situation. You are getting some production, a lot of production from some of your younger rookie players on cheap deals. Right? I mean, we talked about a couple of rookies already. And there's a lot of positives. It definitely, I mean, it probably still stings how the season ended and such, and there's still disappointment. But when you look at it, and you look at the next year and the next couple of years, I don't think there's any debate. There's no question about it that Green Bay is going to be in a position to compete. But the question, I think, that Packers fans, or maybe a concern that Packers fans have, concern might be a little dramatic. It's like, okay, can they go into this offseason then and add the right pieces, maybe the final missing couple pieces to get out, to go from the window, but into that Super Bowl game. Not just be in that window, but actually get to the game. Go through that window and win another Lombardi trophy and get to the big dance. Like, that's probably the biggest question that fans have is like, yeah, we agree. They're in a window. Their window's right now. And we can see the window for the next couple of years. We're not debating that. We just question or wonder, is Goody going to hold on to his word and say, when he said that it's time for us to compete for championships, is he going to do his part to maybe add a couple more veterans for the final pieces of the puzzle? And we're counting, and maybe the other question, too, for some fans is like, yeah, that's a lot of young talent that played well. But will they continue to get better? And will those younger guys who have been around for a couple of years, will they start to be more consistent? Or will they, defensively, will we get something from Lucas Van Ness? So there's still questions. There's no question about it. But I don't think there's too many Packers fans that would argue that, of course, the window is now. And will be for the next few years. It's easy. It's right there. Right in front of us. And that is going to do it for us on this episode of the 715 Green and Gold Tailgate Podcast as part of the Man Cave Podcast. Until next time, I'm Dan Casper, and we will talk to you on the next episode of either the Man Cave Podcast or the 715 Green and Gold Tailgate Podcast.